Welcome to Podcast 83, a regular look at the news, stories, and trends related to Michigan's 83 counties from the Michigan Association of
Good
Counties.
afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Podcast 83, the podcast put on by the Michigan Association of Counties. We had a full slate of football this weekend, so if you were a Michigan State fan, you were happy. Michigan fan, unhappy. Lions fan, unhappy. Packers fan, happy. So it was kind of a mixed bag this weekend, but hopefully next weekend we can get everyone W's because no one's playing each other and keep everyone in Michigan happy. But this past weekend was a little bit of a mixed bag. So today we're joined.
Do we talk to Packers fans? I'm just trying to remember.
You know, there's a fair amount of Packers fans in Michigan for right or wrong.
One of the greatest tragedies of the 21st century. Right
Mainly those Eastern Europeans, they love the Packers, but there's some downstaters that like them too. So, but today we're joined by Deena Bosworth, Samantha Gibson, Jimmy Johnson from the MAC staff, and today we're going to talk budget. We've got now we've had the governor's budget way earlier in the year. Got that in about February, March. The Senate got their budget done in May. Now last week or 2 weeks ago, somewhere in there, we did get a House budget. So now we've got all three chambers have passed their budgets, of course, passed way beyond the statutory deadline of July 1st. But there's no penalty for that, so it really doesn't mean anything. Just the fact that they're in violation of the statute, but there's no other penalties besides that. When the rubber will meet the road is if we go past that October 1st deadline, because that's the first day of the state's budget cycle. Should we go past that date without a legislatively and governor signed budget, we look at government shutdown. And, coincidentally, the federal government is facing that same deadline. So that could have an impact as well. But today, I think we're going to focus mainly on the state budget. So let's first start off by the number one line item. We always talk about state revenue sharing dollars. Guys, fill me in. Where did we end up with the House? What are we looking at here?
Steve, I'm going to back up real quick and just talk about the House process.
Sure.
Because, not very happy at all with the House passed version of the budget, especially when it comes to revenue sharing. And I want to be upset with, our many of our former county commissioners, but honestly, they didn't have time to look at this budget. The House budget skipped votes in subcommittee, skipped votes in the full Appropriations Committee. The budget was discharged onto the House floor, and they had an hour to look over this budget, which is, I don't even know how many pages, hundreds and hundreds, 1,000 pages. And they had an hour to vote on it. And when, we found out what was happening and dug right into those budget bills, we realized that there was a $35 million cut to county revenue sharing in it. And when we reached out and talked to members of the House, we were told, they said they, number one, weren't aware that there was a cut to revenue sharing. And number two, that, but you get this public safety money that's in the budget. And so I think the process was flawed. And I think that the members had a hard time really determining what was in the budget and what wasn't in the budget. But no, we are absolutely not happy with the way revenue sharing is coming out of the House version.
Yeah, it was essentially a backtrack from what we were able to get last year, almost identical to the amount that was increased last year was taken out this year. On the House side, of course, the Senate still has an increase in their budget, and their budget has their problems too. Let's be honest. I mean, they're working off of an inflated revenue number that may not be there. And then the governor's got her budget as well, which was a nominal 4% increase. So three vastly different revenue sharing recommendations from all three chambers, which is, not uncommon by any means. The timing is a bit uncommon, but not uncommon for all three chambers to have different recommendations for a variety of sort of line items. So now they have to work it out. And I think that we could talk about that a little later once we go through some of these line items on that's where the real main concern can be. So again, $35 million reduction on the House side. You mentioned public safety. Talk to us about all three recommendations in the public safety space. Who wants to speak on that?
I could talk on that.
Okay.
So we've been talking about money dedicated to public safety for a couple of cycles now. And there've been different versions of it out there. It originally started as something that Mayor Duggan wanted for the city of Detroit, and he wanted a percentage of the state sales tax to go into this public safety fund and have it go to those communities with violent crime rates, and then they would have to prove that they were bringing down those crime rates. And counties were not included in that originally. The legislation then became part of a House agenda where, again, counties were excluded from it. The governor made her recommendations for additional public safety dollars and excluded counties from it. We went back and forth several times on the legislation. It never actually got enacted. So now there are House bills out there, and then there's the Senate plan. And in the Senate plan, counties are included. There's $60 million in the Senate version of the budget for counties for public safety. But in the Senate version of the budget, that money goes to the County Board of Commissioners to allocate toward public safety endeavors. So it's not just cops on the street. It could be jails. It could be prosecutors. It could be specialty treatment courts. And they would have the flexibility to do that. The House version, on the other hand, now does include money for counties finally, which is great. We were able to advocate and get our way in there. That is $40 million, but that $40 million goes straight to the county sheriff's department. And there are strings attached to that $40 million. The language says that we have to maintain what we were already spending on the county sheriff's department in order for them to be eligible for these additional dollars. So on the one hand, the House version is cutting our revenue sharing by 35 million. And then saying we have to have these minimum spends in the county sheriff's department in order to be eligible for additional money for the county sheriff. But the county really doesn't have any say on how those dollars are spent. So I think, overall, we love the Senate version of the revenue sharing. We love the Senate version of the public safety.
Yeah, so if you had an increase in county revenue sharing last year and you took those funds and put them towards your sheriff's department, now you're getting a $35 million cut in revenue sharing, or a cut to revenue sharing, not 35 per county, but you still would have to maintain that previous funding level when you're getting an increase in revenue sharing, which it could be perceived as kind of a double hit to the budget. So yeah, some concerns there, definitely. A big component of these discussions, has been road funding. The governor's spoken about it. The House does have a plan on it. Senate, no real plan out of the Senate. So why don't we talk a little bit about road funding? Sam, you want to talk a little bit about what the House ended up coming up with?
Yes, thank you, Steve. So the long-awaited $3.4 billion House allocation to roads in their budget has come to fruition. They were able to make the cuts, at least in their proposed budget that the House put out, to find that $3-ish billion. But of course, with that came a cut to county revenue sharing. MAC has been, over the course of the year, a vocal supporter of the House road funding plan. It is certainly beneficial to us, but always with the caveat that it comes with a guarantee that there would not be a cut to revenue sharing, right? I think most counties are not using general fund dollars or the revenue sharing to fund the roads in this regard. And so while yes, the House road funding plan is beneficial and we need this allocation, cutting revenue sharing to meet this $3.4 billion is not a sustainable mechanism to fund the roads.
Yeah, so that obviously has been a big part of the conversation that the House got there through elimination of positions that weren't filled, changing sales tax on gasoline into a full gas tax. So some structural changes there, both the state government and how things are paid at the pump. And now we'll see kind of how things play out with that. And, some other areas we're looking at, with regards to the budget that we'll be watching, and I do want to talk a little bit about the upcoming process afterwards, but prosecutor funding grants. That was in both chambers' recommendation, but not on the governor's recommendation. Who wants to talk on prosecuting grants?
I can touch on that. MAC is supportive of both the House and Senate proposed prosecutor funding mechanisms. The Senate, of course, as Deena mentioned, had this $60 million overarching increase to counties that's meant for public safety. It's up to the county to determine where those dollars are best used at their level, whether it's at the sheriff's office or the prosecutors. The House plan for prosecutors is $25 million, and they can utilize it for backlogged caseloads, as well as the cases that they may choose to retry as a result of the Michigan Supreme Court ruling earlier this year in regards to 19 and 20-year-olds being sentenced to mandatory life without parole. The Supreme Court ruled that unconstitutional. Now there's about 600 and some cases statewide, or individuals rather statewide, that are eligible for resentencing under this MSC ruling. And so this $25 million in the House budget would allow those prosecutors' offices to address backlogged caseloads and those cases brought up by that ruling. Again, we're supportive of both the House and Senate plan. Obviously, the Senate plan is more funding, and the House plan is directed directly to the prosecutors.
Okay, great. Yeah, and then finally, the other we want to talk a little bit about is problem-solving courts. Some different recommendations there from each of the chambers and the governor's office. First, talk a little bit about what problem-solving courts are, and then what the recommendations look like.
Problem-solving courts allow communities to address different public safety matters as they see fit, right? So you have substance use court, alcohol court, veterans court, different options for treatment courts that are more or less diversion opportunities that allow individuals to go through the criminal justice system, seek rehabilitation, and avoid incarceration in many instances. So this kind of falls under this larger public safety umbrella, right? And some of the issue we take with the House Public Safety Plan of public safety goes beyond just the sheriff's offices. And this is one of those opportunities that the prosecutors have to assist with rehabilitating individuals in the community. The governor and the Senate recommended a $1.6 million increase to problem-solving court funding. The House did not include that funding in their budget. And so it's not something that, counties are constitutionally mandated to provide, but it's becoming more and more popular over the years. And I know a lot of the prosecutors are supportive of these courts within their jurisdictions. Without the state funding component to it, it's going to hurt a lot of these courts. And counties are going to see, well, these are individuals that we were once able to divert from incarceration. And now if we don't have this funding, we're not going to be able to sustain these courts and allow for these programs to avoid jail time.
Right. By no means a comprehensive list. And I think, Jimmy, you had one more item you wanted to touch on before we move on.
Yeah, as we're talking about budgets, it's really easy to find things that we're not going to be very happy about, right? So one thing in the beginning of this term, when we're looking at the budget, me and Deena, we both enjoy horses. We enjoy horse racing. And it is apparent to me, at least in the legislature, in the Senate, in the House, and the governor, apparently they all love horse racing. They all love our county fairs. Because we did see a $2 million increase into horse racing coffers. So what exactly does that do? Why is this going to be so great for our counties? Okay, so we're going to have more people that are actually going to be racing on race days, which means I come from a small town. We have a very small fair, and we didn't get many people. If we have races, we're going to have people that are going to show up, and we're going to have foot traffic. We're going to have business for our vendors, for our small businesses. So this $2 million boost could actually have a bigger dividend for our smaller communities. So this is my positive spin on this budget. It's like, hey, look, we have one really good thing, and I'm going to cheerlead this to the finish.
Thank goodness we have Jimmy.
Positive spin for everybody today.
Wow, thank goodness we have Jimmy, because Sam and I are mostly doom and gloom, but
well, if nothing else, it shows that they can all get along and agree on something at some point in this budget process. So let's talk a little bit about the next steps in this. We talked a little bit about the various differences in all three chambers. Typically, you see conference committees get together. They've got targets. They're trying to work together to get targets. I don't think that's going to be the case, right?
I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, the conference committees will have to meet. But from what we understand, the negotiations are really taking place at the highest level. You've got staff in the room, governor staff, Senate Majority Leader's office staff, and, the speaker staff, and they're trying to come up with what they think they can agree on between the chambers. But I don't think the heavy hitters have been in the room all together at the same time to sort this out. And that's got to happen before they can even think about drafting up a document that is agreeable to everyone.
Well, and typically it's been the quadrant and the governor's office that have gotten together on these bigger issues to work on it. It sounds like it's more like a triangle now where it's the Senate Majority Leader, the Speaker, and the governor's office speaking. So that's not so much those other folks in each chamber involved in the discussion process. But we're getting down to the end here. We only got about 3 weeks. Would we figure about 8 voting days really before a shutdown? Of course, right during our conference, right when our conference starts, we could have a shutdown. So I think people need to be pragmatic, and we still don't have a school aid fund budget done, which is something we don't track, but still a big component of what happens here in Lansing. So you got that dynamic as well. So it'd be interesting to see how things play out. I think folks need to probably prepare for a shutdown. What that means in each county is going to be different as far as paying things out, paying employees, how long it goes, that sort of thing. But yeah,
A government shutdown isn't ideal. I mean, nobody
not good for
really wants to
anybody.
see this happen at all. I think though, I don't think it's going to be like a 2-month shutdown. I think they will, it'll be close. It'll be close to the, start of the new fiscal year, but
Yeah, well, we'll see.
how long?
We'll keep track of it and keep updating folks. Anything else you guys want to touch on that I missed? All right, well, please, registration's open for a conference through the end of this week. This is being recorded on September 6th, so this Friday, which is, who's got that date in front of them here?
It is 8th.
Today's the 8th, so the 12th. Registration's done, so you can register through then. We've got great numbers for this conference. We're up in Grand Traverse Resort in Traverse City, starting on September 30th. So please register. We'd love to see you up there. With that, we'll sign off and see everyone next week. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Podcast 83.